or if you've ever been in a leadership position, this sermon is for you. I think St. Margaret's is a church of leaders. It's a leader in the diocese. When the diocese needs something, they look to us to lead. And so we are not only a church made up of individual leaders, but we are a church that leads. And I think today's lessons, especially in the Old Testament and the New Testament, offer us some reflections on leadership that for those of you who do lead right now, or maybe even those of you who are being led, we can reflect on these lessons and learn something about what it means to follow Christ as being leaders. So, in the Old Testament, Moses, called by God to lead his people out of Egypt into the Promised Land. And what happens? He hears complaints. Now, it's important to know, we kind of joke about this when the people complain. They say, we are thirsty, we want food, we want drink. That we like to kind of attach a whining voice to that. Sometimes, don't we? I mean, did you hear it that way? We're thirsty, get us something to drink. And we think of ourselves driving our kids on that endless summer vacation. And we hear that voice, and we ascribe it to the people that were following Moses. And I just want to say that we should caution ourselves in doing that. Because this is a valid complaint. People need to drink. So as leaders, you field complaints that sometimes might sound inconsequential, but oftentimes they are valid and need to be paid attention to. So we have to ask ourselves, what did Moses respond with? I would offer that Moses responded with prayer. It's not the kind of prayer that I think we often talk about in the Bible. It's not the kind of prayer that you would hear in a talk about spiritual reflection or anything. It's the kind of prayer that I associate with the most because it's the prayer that I've been doing for about 25, 30 years since college. And right in that pew, right where Samuel's sitting, I'll come during the day and I will sit there in the dark church and sit and complain to God. Just like Moses. I will sit and I will say, why is this happening? Why don't they get it? Why can't I communicate in a way that works? What should I do next? And those are my prayers to God. And in that prayer, what I will do, just like I've done ever since I was a sophomore at Providence College, I would unload and I'd put it all on the table in front of God and I would say, this is my heart, God. I've opened it up and this is what I have for you. There's anger, there's frustration, there's love, there's gratitude. This is what I've got for you. And then I'd sit, empty, and I'd wait for that still small voice to come to me saying, it's going to be okay. I am the God who brought forth water from the rock. I am the God who breaks down the walls. I am the God who redeems and resurrects. I am your God. Sometimes you get a go. Sometimes you get a go and deal with it. Sometimes you get a go and follow your heart. Sometimes you get a, that's not how I would handle it. You got to listen to those voices. Listen to the still small voice of God when it comes to you. Because these things are valid that you are offering up to God. So Moses gets complaints and he prays in response. I would say that Jesus gets challenged. In the gospel lesson, Jesus' authority is challenged by the religious authorities of the day. They say, we want to know why you're doing these things, by what authority you're doing them, what gives you the right to act in this way. And of course, what is he referring to? I wasn't in church last week. What happened? Were you in church last week? I saw the numbers. Some of you were. What happened in the gospel last week? You tell me. The vineyard story. All right? So it's a vineyard story. And the idea is that Jesus is now in his last days in Jerusalem. And he's overturning the tables in the temple. He's upsetting the money changers. He's creating a lot of political theater. He's rallying people to his cause somewhat. And he knows what's going to happen. He knows what the end game is. And then his authority is challenged. They say, why are you doing these things? And he tells them a story. Instead of Moses who prays, Jesus parables. He tells them a parable, and he says, look, there's one son who says he's going to go, but he doesn't. There's another son that says he's not going to go, but he does. Which of these is righteous? And of course, the answer comes, the one who actually does the work and goes. And then Jesus' cutting response comes. He says, look, the tax collectors and the prostitutes, the ones who get it, the ones who see who I am, the ones who see what's going on in the world, they are the ones who are going to lead the parade into the kingdom of heaven. They are going to go ahead of you. And that gives me such comfort. Not because I'm a prostitute or a tax collector, but because I'm one of the Pharisees. I'm one of the ones who says, I will go, but I straggle. I make excuses. I'm one of those who doesn't go. And what I hear in that passage is this. Those people who get it, those people who understand the good news that I am bringing, they are going to go ahead of you. They're not going to go instead of you. They're not going to go in your place. They're not going to sit in the seat that is reserved for you. They are just going to go ahead of you because they are a little bit closer. In other words, you might not get it, but you might get it tomorrow. And that gives me great comfort because I know that there are days that I don't get it. And I want to get it desperately. And someday, thanks be to God, I will get it. And I will conclude the parade up to heaven. And I might even be the last one in. And I hope that you all welcome me with open arms. It also gives me great comfort to know that the people who are not in church, the people who lead very morally upright lives, the people you and I know and work with and love, who say, I don't believe in the Christian God, or the God of Islam, or the Jain God, or any of those gods. I don't believe in those things, but I try to treat people like I want to be treated. I try to do the best that I can do. We all know people like that. And sometimes when we hear lessons like, work out your own salvation with fear and trembling, sometimes when we hear language like that, we wonder. Maybe not up here, but back here, in the back of our heads, we wonder. We say, if they don't go to church, if they don't believe in the cross, if they don't pray, what is God going to do with them? What is God going to think? I'll give you an example. Yesterday I was doing a wedding out in Fairfax, and this guy who I know, who, well, he swears more than I pray, let's put it that way. He came up to me at the end of it and he said, oh, that was a great ceremony, that was great, I don't know what you call it, was it a talk, was it a sermon? I don't know. I don't really believe any of that God stuff, but it was great, man. You were real. And he didn't say the word stuff either. But I know that it's going to be okay for him. And I know that when he treats his neighbor with love and respect and dignity, God smiles on that the same as he smiles on me. When that man disappoints God by not living up to the terms of the baptismal covenant, even though he's never even read it, when he doesn't lift other people up in respect and love and dignity, God is going to be as disappointed in him as God is in me. That's what I want to believe. I think for me, being a leader, the hardest thing sometimes is to hear that word go, which is what Moses had to hear. Moses had to hear God say, go. Take that staff. You remember that staff? You and that staff go way back. You've done great things with that staff. That staff has helped you out in a vine. That staff and you belong together. Take that staff and go out and do ministry. Go out and strike a rock and wonderful things will spring forth. This is the God that we proclaim. We proclaim the God that makes water come out of stone. We proclaim a God that makes something out of nothing, that makes order out of chaos, that brings life out of death. This is the God who loves us and who calls us sometimes to follow. This is the God who calls us to follow and says, I don't care who you are. I don't care what you've done or what you haven't done. If you follow, there will be a place prepared for you. You are my child, beloved. You are a child of God. You are a child of a God that is awesome. You are a child of a God who loves you and who welcomes you into a space where you are free to be the person you are becoming. You don't have to get it right now. There will always be time for you to turn and understand that this God calls you all. Amen.
Amen.